What do sandwich-throwing tantrums, wig threats, and actual machete attacks have in common? Hollywood, baby. These 20 actors brought chaos to the set and somehow still got cast again. Orson Welles, Tyrant behind the camera. He was a genius, but he didn't make it easy for anyone. On Citizen Kane, he clashed with nearly every department. He ignored studio notes, rewrote scenes without warning, and even built hidden sets to shoot in secret. Crew members said he treated them like props. One recalled being screamed at in front of dozens for moving a light 2 inches. On The Lady from Shanghai, Welles had Hayworth cut and bleach her signature red hair. They believed he'd destroyed her marketable image, and the studio never forgave him for it. Columbia Pictures was furious. So was Hayworth, his wife at the time. Directors usually fight with producers. Welles fought with everyone. He'd disappear for days, return without explanation, then demand entire scenes be reshot. Sound engineers said he would snap his fingers instead of calling people by name. One assistant claimed he was once ordered to fetch 12 different types of sandwiches just to have Welles throw them all out. Otto Preminger's abuse of actors. He ran his sets like a dictatorship. On St. Joan in 1957, he tormented 19-year-old Jean Seberg during take after take. She'd never acted before. Preminger screamed at her, belittled her looks, and humiliated her in front of the crew. She left the shoot with a nervous breakdown and permanent facial scars from a botched stunt he insisted she perform without a double. He was just as cruel on The Man with the Golden Arm. Frank Sinatra, no pushover, nearly walked off set after being berated for minor mistakes. Crew members said Preminger created a climate of fear. His assistant directors carried stopwatches and clipboards. Actors weren't allowed to question him, even over safety. He wasn't subtle either. When someone crossed him, he made it known. One actor asked for a retake. Preminger reportedly fired him on the spot and replaced him before lunch. When critics called his behavior abusive, he laughed it off. He said actors needed to be broken in like horses. Dean Martin's drunken disrespect. He was cool on camera, but chaotic behind the scenes. During the Dean Martin show and his string of Rat Pack films, he often showed up late, slurred his lines, or skipped rehearsals altogether. Crew members said scripts were rewritten last minute just to work around whatever mood he was in or how much he'd had to drink. Directors learned not to argue. On Ocean's 11, Martin refused to shoot scenes before 1 p.m. He wanted to golf in the mornings, and no one dared stop him. Frank Sinatra backed him, so everyone else had to fall in line. By the mid-1960s, things got worse. On Matt Helm's sets, Martin reportedly refused more than 3 takes. Co-stars said he laughed through serious scenes and refused to rehearse. One actress said she met him for the first time during the shoot because he skipped all the prep meetings. Despite it all, he kept getting hired. The charm sold tickets, but those who worked with him didn't always see the charm. Jerry Lee Lewis's Hollywood rampage. When the rock and roll star tried breaking into film, chaos followed. On the set of High School Confidential in 1958, he demanded changes to the script, refused basic direction, and stormed off set more than once. Crew members said he treated the production like it was his own concert. Things got worse off camera. He'd trash dressing rooms, show up late or not at all. One director claimed Lewis once threw a chair through a trailer window because his coffee was cold. Another time, he smashed a piano on stage during a rehearsal and blamed it on creative frustration. Studios were already nervous. His marriage to his 13-year-old cousin had just become public, sparking outrage across the country. Some theaters boycotted his film. Others pulled it after opening weekend. Lewis didn't care. When a publicist begged him to lay low, he reportedly lit a cigar and said, "I didn't come here to behave." Tony Curtis's diva tantrums. He looked like a matinee idol but acted like a full-time diva. By the 1960s, he was famous, and he knew it. On the set of The Boston Strangler in 1968, Curtis demanded his lines be rewritten to make him seem more heroic. When the director pushed back, Curtis threatened to walk. He had a rule: only film his good side. Curtis preferred to be shot from his left side and wasn't shy about it. Directors and cinematographers often had to adjust camera angles and lighting to flatter him. One crew member said filming around his preferences could drag shoots out by hours. His behavior wasn't limited to that set. On Taras Bulba, he clashed so badly with Yul Brynner that production stalled for days. Crew members said Curtis often kept people waiting while he took calls or changed costumes a dozen times. He once made a costume assistant cry after accusing her of shrinking his pants on purpose. When asked to apologize, he said, "She'll get over it. They always do." William Shatner's ego trips. He was the star of Star Trek, and he made sure everyone knew it. Co-stars complained that he hogged screen time and constantly had lines rewritten to boost Captain Kirk's role. Leonard Nimoy said scenes were often changed last minute just to center Shatner. Behind the scenes, resentment grew. George Takei and James Doohan openly criticized him for ignoring other cast members and treating them like background extras. One writer said Shatner would argue over camera angles just to make sure he looked taller than everyone else. On press tours, he forgot people's names. At fan events, he brushed off questions with sarcasm. And on set, he rarely socialized unless cameras were rolling. During the animated Star Trek series, Shatner even tried to limit how much dialogue the rest of the cast got. Producers pushed back, so did the actors. But the power imbalance was clear. Faye Dunaway's on-set meltdowns. On the set of Chinatown, director Roman Polanski said working with her was a nightmare. She reportedly refused direction, walked off set mid-scene, and once threw a cup of urine at him after being denied a bathroom break. It wasn't a one-time thing. On Mommy Dearest, she clashed with crew members daily. She demanded special lighting setups for every shot and insisted on reviewing footage between takes. Crew said she was explosive and unpredictable, sometimes screaming at assistants for bringing the wrong brand of bottled water. Her co-stars kept quiet, but after filming wrapped, stories leaked. One grip said she threw a script at a production assistant for printing the wrong font size. On another film, she allegedly had a staffer fired for calling her Faye instead of Miss Dunaway. Klaus Kinski's volatile outbursts. On the set of Aguir, The Wrath of God, his rage was nonstop. Director Werner Herzog said Kinski screamed for hours, threatened to quit daily, and once fired a gun at a crew tent because he didn't like the noise. Herzog claimed he had to keep Kinski under control by threatening to kill him. In his documentary My Best Fiend, he detailed how Kinski tried to attack a sound technician with a machete and had violent outbursts over coffee, costumes, and camera angles. It didn't stop after Aguirre. On Fitzcarraldo, Kinski fought with the entire crew, insulted indigenous extras, and demanded rewrites mid-shoot. Makeup artists refused to work with him. Co-stars said he was either yelling or sulking. Tatum ONeal's child star clashes. At just 10 years old, she won an Oscar for Paper Moon. By her teens, she had a reputation for being impossible on set. Directors said she argued over every line and refused to take direction unless it came directly from the top. During International Velvet, 1978, crew members said she showed up late, rolled her eyes at notes, and clashed constantly with trainers and horse wranglers. One assistant recalled she screamed at a costume designer for handing her a wrinkled jacket. Her behavior spilled over into press tours. Journalists said she was sarcastic, combative, and uninterested in interviews. When asked about set tensions, she'd dodge questions or place blame on others. By the 80s, things got worse. She was fired from Little Darlings after repeated arguments with producers. The industry tried to give her room to grow, but the attitude didn't fade. Despite her talent, jobs slowed down. Co-stars kept their distance. Sean Penn's violent confrontations. In 1986, he was arrested after assaulting a photographer on the set of Shanghai Surprise. It wasn't his first outburst. Crew members whispered he smashed equipment, punched extras, and yelled at anyone who challenged him. His relationship with Madonna didn't help his image. In 1987, reports surfaced that he tied her to a chair during a heated fight. Though she later refused to press charges, the story haunted his career for years. On Colors, director Dennis Hopper said Penn was the most intense, volatile actor he'd ever worked with. Police were hired to keep him in check during filming. Penn still got into fistfights with bystanders and crew. Madonna's diva behavior on set. During Evita in 1996, director Alan Parker said working with her was like wrestling with a tiger. She demanded full control over lighting, costumes, and even editing decisions. Crew said she would halt production to adjust her hair or complain about camera angles. She wasn't new to it either. Back in 1987 on Who's That Girl, Madonna clashed with nearly everyone. One production assistant said she refused to speak to anyone who wasn't in a department head role. Rumors spread that she'd only respond if someone addressed her as Madonna every time. Her behavior became legendary on Swept Away 2002, directed by then-husband Guy Ritchie. She refused to film scenes unless the temperature was perfect and often rewrote her dialogue mid-shoot. The movie bombed. So did her reputation in Hollywood. Madonna later defended herself, saying she was just focused and protecting the work. Bruce Willis's refusal to cooperate. By the time Cop Out rolled around in 2010, he had fully embraced the difficult star title. Director Kevin Smith, a longtime fan, called the experience soul-crushing. Willis reportedly refused to take direction, rolled his eyes during scenes, and often didn't speak to crew members for entire days. It wasn't an isolated case. On Red 2, insiders said he was constantly late and never rehearsed. Co-stars tried to stay professional, but word spread fast. One crew member said they had to use stand-ins for setup because Willis wouldn't show until cameras were ready to roll. He didn't hide it either. On press tours, he looked bored and dismissed interviewers with one-word answers. When asked about his attitude, he said, "I just don't care about the junk anymore." By the late 2010s, he was taking roles in low-budget films where he barely appeared on set. Directors were warned in advance, keep the dialogue short, don't expect input, and avoid retakes. Christian Bale's infamous set rant. In 2009, he made headlines for the wrong reason. While filming Terminator Salvation, audio leaked of Bale unleashing a 4-minute profanity-filled rant at a crew member who walked through his sightline during a scene. The tirade included threats, repeated insults, and phrases that couldn't be aired without heavy censoring. The incident wasn't a one-off. Crew said Bale was tightly wound and easily triggered. He expected silence when filming and didn't tolerate mistakes. Some said the tension on set was constant, especially during emotional scenes. One lighting tech called the atmosphere hostile. Bale later apologized publicly, saying he acted like a punk, but the damage was done. The clip went viral. Late-night shows mocked it. Editors even turned it into dance remixes. Despite the outburst, he kept landing major roles. Directors claimed he was intense, but talented. Still, crews approached him with caution after the blow-up. Gia Labbuff's toxic method acting. On Lawless, 2012, he got into real fights with co-stars to stay in character. Tom Hardy later confirmed they brawled so badly, Labbuff knocked him out cold in a hallway scuffle. Then came Fury, 2014. Labbuff reportedly refused to shower, pulled out his own tooth, and sliced his face open between takes so he wouldn't need fake wounds. Cast and crew were stunned. Director David Ayer tried to defend him, but insiders said his behavior became distracting and hard to manage. In 2016, during Suicide Squad auditions, Labbuff allegedly sent disturbing personal videos to producers and fellow actors. He didn't get the role. The same year, he was arrested for public intoxication while filming a different project. His co-stars often stayed quiet publicly, but behind the scenes, the verdict was clear. Working with him was exhausting. Labbuff claimed it was all part of his process. But for many on set, it just felt like chaos in the name of art. And eventually, even directors known for taking risks stopped calling. Alec Baldwin's rage problems. In 2013, he was suspended from MSNBC after yelling anti-gay slurs at a photographer outside his home. He later apologized, but it wasn't his first meltdown and wouldn't be his last. On film sets, stories piled up. One crew member from 30 Rock said Baldwin screamed over small delays and stormed off when scenes didn't go his way. Others recalled sudden mood swings, from charming to explosive within minutes. His co-star Tina Fey admitted he was difficult but brilliant, which became the unofficial summary of working with him. At home, things were no calmer. In 2007, a voicemail leaked of Baldwin calling his 11-year-old daughter a rude, thoughtless little pig. Public backlash was swift, but Baldwin blamed stress in a bad custody fight. The tension peaked in 2021 during the Rust production. While the tragedy on set wasn't about temperament, reports described a toxic work environment and ongoing tension between Baldwin and crew even before the fatal incident. Lea Michele's co-star bullying. For years, rumors followed Lea Michele. But in 2020, when Glee co-star Samantha Ware spoke up, the stories finally spilled out. Ware said Michele made her life a living hell on set, including a threat to defecate in her wig. Several other cast members backed her up. Amber Riley confirmed that working with Michele wasn't easy. Heather Morris called her unpleasant to work with. Even crew members noted she demanded special treatment and acted like she was above everyone else. This wasn't a one-show issue. On Spring Awakening and other Broadway productions, castmates said she micromanaged scenes, snapped at ensemble members, and insisted on separate rehearsal schedules. One actor recalled being scolded by Michele for daring to warm up too close to her dressing room. When the backlash hit, she posted an apology, but critics pointed out she never directly addressed the people she harmed. Brands dropped her. Planned projects stalled. Some chalked it up to child stardom gone unchecked. Others saw it as something worse, entitlement that was allowed to fester. For a performer once hailed as a rising star, her behind-the-scenes behavior left a long list of people glad to never work with her again. Miles Teller's COVID tantrum. While filming The Offer in 2021, Miles Teller became the center of a major COVID controversy. Production shut down when he tested positive, but it wasn't just the illness that caused problems. Reports surfaced that he had refused mandatory COVID testing prior to filming. Paramount insiders said his actions caused costly delays and panic among cast and crew. It wasn't his first red flag. On other sets, he was labeled difficult. During Divergent, directors noted his sarcasm bordered on disrespect. On Fantastic Four, he clashed with producers, reportedly mocking the script and fighting changes. But The Offer took things to another level because now his choices were putting people at health risk. One source claimed he argued with the medical team and ignored repeated reminders about safety protocol. When questioned about it publicly, his team went quiet, refusing to confirm or deny the allegations. After production resumed, co-workers reportedly kept their distance. A few even joked that the only method acting going on was pretending to like him. In an industry trying to keep people safe and working, Teller's attitude rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And for many involved, the biggest drama wasn't the story he was filming, it was the one happening off camera. Vin Diesel's feud with The Rock. By the time The Fate of the Furious started filming, tension between Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson had hit a boiling point. Johnson posted a now famous Instagram rant calling unnamed male co-stars candy asses and slamming their unprofessional behavior. Everyone knew who he meant. Behind the scenes, the feud was real. Johnson reportedly clashed with Diesel over scheduling, on-set delays, and Diesel's constant lateness. Crew members said the two wouldn't shoot scenes together. Body doubles were used just to avoid having them in the same room. Things didn't cool off. In later interviews, Johnson confirmed he had no plans to return to the main Fast and Furious franchise. Diesel, meanwhile, made passive-aggressive statements about giving Johnson tough love as a producer. Johnson fired back, calling the comments manipulative. The feud became so disruptive that Universal created a spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw, just to keep them apart. It worked, but the tension never fully went away. Fans loved the action on screen. Behind the camera, though, it was ego versus ego. And in this case, no amount of stunt work could fix what was happening between takes. Katherine Heigl's public trash talking. In 2008, she publicly withdrew her Grey's Anatomy Emmy consideration, claiming the writing didn't deserve it. Writers and producers were blindsided, and tensions exploded behind the scenes. Not long after, she trashed Knocked Up, calling it sexist. Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen said they were shocked. Rogen later admitted he never wanted to work with her again. Crew from Grey's Anatomy said she was constantly complaining about her schedule, lines, and even wardrobe. Some claimed she delayed production with last-minute script objections and refused table reads. Former co-stars confirmed she was difficult and cold on set, even with longtime castmates. The fallout was fast. By the early 2010s, she was dropped from studio rom-coms and had to rebuild her image through indie work and apologies. Even then, directors stayed cautious. Heigl later admitted she could have handled things better. But in Hollywood, word spreads fast. And when you trash the people writing your checks, they usually stop writing them. Jonathan Majors' 2023 assault case. In 2023, he was arrested in New York City for assaulting his then-girlfriend. The arrest came just as his career was peaking. He had starred in Creed III, played Marvel's next major villain, and was being praised as Hollywood's new leading man. The fallout was swift. Multiple women came forward with allegations of emotional and physical abuse. In court, prosecutors presented texts, audio, and video evidence showing a pattern of manipulation and control. Though he denied all wrongdoing, a jury convicted him in late 2023. Marvel immediately dropped him. So did his management team and several endorsement deals. His upcoming projects were either shelved or recast entirely. What made the case even more disturbing was the pattern. Friends and former partners described him as charming in public but emotionally volatile in private. One woman said she spent years recovering from what she called psychological warfare. Majors had been on a fast rise, but after the conviction, his name disappeared from the spotlight. Industry insiders say he's now uninsurable, and studios won't touch his name. In less than a year, he went from breakout star to cautionary tale, not because of bad press, but because of proven, documented harm.